Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. Thanks for spending time with me here in YouTube land. For those of you new to this venue, since this is a free event and we are broadcasting it worldwide, and it's going to be on YouTube for time immemorial, let me give you a little bit of my background. I'm a naturopathic physician. I have 28 years of clinical experience in primary care naturopathic medicine, helping people to recover their health with science-based, clinically verified naturopathic therapeutics. I'm a proud graduate of Bastyr University in the great state of Washington. I've been around the block a time or two with naturopathic therapeutics, and my profession, naturopathic medicine, is only licensed and regulated in 17 states in the United States, plus the U.S. Virgin Islands. We are the low man on the totem pole of medicine, and my message here is clear. Let me be clear. We're not pulling any more punches because too many people are sick and dying needlessly. The main reason that there is so much medical suffering in the world is because of a medical monopoly which has existed for nearly 100 years. It's my intention to educate you and everybody in the world as much as I can about the real reason for the healthcare crisis which is upon us. We are all beneath the wheel of illness. We're not getting healthier, we're getting sicker. Our life expectancy is getting shorter, not longer, and there's a reason for all of these things, and it's not genetic. By the way, this is a live event. This is not a pre-recorded event. This is live right now. Thank you for showing up, for tuning in and turning on. Let me see if we can get started here. Hold your horses. Let me see if I can click the appropriate boxes. And we are off to the races. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in and turning on. I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. Thanks for your time. Let's get this party started. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not angry, you're simply not paying attention. We are getting sicker every year. Our movie star heroes die at an early age, and nobody seems to be upset. It's a problem. It's a billion-pound gorilla in the middle of this country that nobody sees. This man saw it long time ago. Dr. Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, one of the founders of the United States of America, had this to say over 200 years ago. He'd be spinning in his grave if he saw what was happening. Unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize itself into a dictatorship. To restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privileges to others will constitute the Bastille of medical science. All such laws are un-American and despotic. And ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what has happened here in the last 90-plus years. These are the states that currently license naturopathic medicine, the states in blue, plus the United States Virgin Islands. The states in gray do not recognize naturopathic medicine, which apparently means that the laws of science, the laws of medicine, change when you cross state lines. Well, this, of course, is not true, but this is a small example of the monopoly that exists not only here in the United States, but in all industrialized nations around the world. The only medicine your insurance pays for is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine they practice in your hospitals is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine that universities do research on is MD-directed medicine. And the only medicine they make TV shows about is MD-directed medicine. And even though MD-directed medicine is the leading cause of death, the leading cause of bankruptcy, we still genuflect at the altar of the MD's seeming intelligence. And this is a gigantic problem, because in point of fact, your medical doctor does not own medical science. They own just one piece of the pie of medical science. In the pie of medical science, there's the MD way, the chiropractic way, traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, naturopathic medicine, to name a few. But we have been socialized to believe that the only real type of medicine is MD-directed medicine, and everybody except the MD is a back-of-the-bus quack practicing alternative, substandard, and dangerous medicine. Meanwhile, MD-directed medical treatments are the leading cause of death and the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. It's inside out, it's upside down, and it is backwards. But most people have no idea of these distinctions. They look around and they see, well, son of a gun, the only medicine practiced in my hospital is MD-directed medicine. The only medicine I really know anything about is MD-directed medicine, and therefore the MDs must be best at what they do. That's not true. The MDs are in the top dog position because they legislated themselves there in the early 1900s with the help of the Carnegies and the Rockefellers. And they haven't given up the number one position since. As a matter of fact, they've done everything that they can to marginalize every other healthcare practitioner. Talking about dogs, it's actually a good metaphor, because medicine from one perspective, is not unlike dogs. There are a number of different types of dogs, and they're all good for different things. Bloodhounds, for example, are good for finding lost people. Labrador retrievers are good for duck hunting, good for pheasant hunting, right? Chihuahuas, well, I have no idea what Chihuahuas are good for, but in point of fact, if you took a Chihuahua duck hunting, I can guarantee that you're going to come back empty-handed, right? It's the wrong dog for the hunt. Well, as it turns out, your medical doctor is the wrong dog for the hunt if you are suffering with a chronic disease, or if you are interested in getting your body healthy. Interestingly enough, your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created, very good at what they do, but they are not trained in medicine. Nobody is. Medicine is a vast domain. Your medical doctor is trained in one particular type of medicine. It's referred to as allopathic medicine. Now, I'm a naturopathic doctor, right? There's chiropractic medicine, homeopathic medicine, osteopathic medicine, many different types of medicine. The type of medicine your MD is trained in is allopathic. But you have been socialized to believe that your medical doctor practices medicine. They do not. This is a very important distinction for you to understand, that your medical doctor does not practice medicine. They practice allopathic medicine. They are not trained in medicine. They're trained in allopathic medicine. And what's allopathic medicine all about, Dr. Glidden? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Allopathic medicine is based on the science of Sir Isaac Newton. It's based on Newtonian science, which is reductionistic. Reductionistic science argues that if it cannot be measured, it does not exist. Medical philosophy is very important to understand. There's not going to be a test here. Don't worry. But it's important that you understand where your MD is coming from, because when you're sick, you're frightened, and rightly so. Nobody likes to be sick. Nobody likes to be in pain. Nobody likes to, get a bad diagnosis. But we don't really know what type of medicine the MDs are trained in. And when we're sick, we just fall back to the easiest thing to do, right? I mean, your medical insurance pays for MD medicine. MD medicine is everywhere all the time, so you think in the back of your head, well, they can't be that bad at what they do. And, if those alternative guys are any good at what they did, they'd be in the hospital. Well, that's not the case. We're not allowed to practice in these hospitals, not because our therapeutics are inferior, but because the medical doctors do not want the competition. But I digress. It's important that we understand where the MDs are coming from, right? They're coming from medical science grounded in reductionistic medical philosophy. And reductionism argues that the human body is a machine made of parts. There is no soul, right? Remember, it's reductionism, and if it can't be measured, it doesn't exist. Since nobody's dissected the soul out of the human body, since nobody's seen it with an MRI, a CT, or an X-ray, it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist, period. Your body, to an MD, is a bag of biochemicals waiting to break, and when the body does break, it doesn't have the ability to heal itself, and the illness must be managed with drugs. This is the point of view that your medical doctor brings to bear on your treatment. Now, this is a very important point to ponder, and for most people, it's a realization, somewhat dramatic, and I hope cathartic realization. Your medical doctor, again, may be the nicest person that God ever created, but because they have been trained and educated in allopathic reductionism, they are not concerned with how to cure your illness. Think I'm wrong? Well, of the thousands of prescription medications which are currently available, the only ones that cure anything are antibiotics, and those are starting to fail us. Your medical doctor doesn't even know how to cure heartburn. They can manage it with the little purple pill, but they can't cure it. They can't cure high blood pressure. They can't cure heart disease. They can't cure arthritis. They can't cure depression. They can't cure anything if it's not infectious. They can manage it very well. And when I'm appointed Surgeon General of the United States, it will be illegal for anybody practicing allopathic reductionism, anybody with an MD after their name, any hospital practicing allopathic medicine, disseminating allopathic medical treatments, it will be illegal for them to advertise health care, because in point of fact, they do not practice health care. They practice disease management. And we need to call a spade a spade. There needs to be truth in advertising. If it said, on the outside of your hospital in big letters, disease management, I think you would think twice about going there. Remember, knowledge is power. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have holistic medicine, and you don't know what holistic medicine is. You think that you do, but you do not. Holistic medicine gets a lot of bad press by people with brains the size of walnuts. Holistic medicine gets a bad rap when it should get nothing but praise, because holistic medical philosophy is consistent with the reality of the human experience. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Isn't that what every major world religion argues? That the body is inhabited by a soul, by a spirit? Well, this is what every holistic system of medicine in the world argues. Your body is an intricate system of interrelated parts managed by the soul. And because the soul has intelligence, the body knows how to fix itself. The body wants to fix itself. The body is attempting all of the time to fix itself. And it is the holistic physician's job, sacred duty, quite frankly, to deliver therapeutics which support and promote the body's built-in ability to fix itself, to attempt to cure the illness. Holistic physicians attempt to cure. Reductionistic physicians manage. And there is a gigantic difference between the two. Now, given the option, whom would you rather go to? A physician, licensed and regulated, who was trained in therapeutics which attempted to cure your condition, or a physician, licensed and regulated, delivering pharmaceuticals, the intention of which is to exert a hostile takeover of the biochemistry of the body and not cure a darn thing? Well, I think I'll go for door number one, Johnny. Thank you very much. I would too. But because of lack of education, most people don't even know how to pronounce naturopathic and have no idea what holistic medicine is all about. And so when they get sick, they go to the easiest place in town. And even though the MDs consistently fail, we go back because we just don't know there are options. Say what, Dr. Glidden? What are you talking about? My medical doctor is not concerned with how to cure disease. That's correct. They're only trained in how to manage disease. And I'm going to underline this. They may be very well-intentioned human beings, but they do not practice healthcare. They practice disease management. And that's an important distinction for you to understand. Now, look, this is not a let's bash the MD session. This is a let's all get a clue session. The MDs being brought up inside of reductionistic allopathic medicine have a particular skill set which is very, 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 very good. Remember, right? Different dogs for different jobs. Well, as it turns out, the MDs, because of their training in allopathic reductionism, are really good at trauma care, surgery when it's necessary, and a handful of infectious diseases. That is their skill set. That is where they excel. However, because of the monopoly, which is self-policing and self-regulating, Harvard University even says that over 50%, I think the number was 55, but don't quote me, over 50% of emergency room medical doctors are addicted to street drugs, alcohol, or prescription medications. And nobody goes to jail, nobody's wrist gets slapped, there are no OSHA tickets delivered. Why? Because it's good to be the king, and when you're the king, you can get away, well, with murder. Remember, the leading cause of death in the United States, MD-directed medical therapeutics. And the leading cause of bankruptcy, well, what's the most expensive type of medicine, Dr. Glidden? Well, I thought you'd never ask. It's the one that doesn't work. However, remember, you're not going to take a Chihuahua duck hunting, but if you take a Labrador Retriever duck hunting, that's probably a good idea. If you have a bullet in your arm, a broken leg, a bleeding artery, some type of trauma to the body, then the MD is the dog for the hunt, the best dog for the hunt. And look, we don't let chiropractors do open heart surgery, do we? No, nor should we. I love chiropractors. Chiropractic medicine is awesome. Chiropractic medicine is extremely misunderstood and extremely underrated. But nonetheless, we wouldn't go to a chiropractor for open heart surgery because that's not their thing. Well, neither should we go to a medical doctor for anything other than trauma or surgery when it's necessary. If you're suffering with a chronic disease like blood pressure, asthma, depression, heartburn, arthritis, blood sugar issues, anything that's a chronic illness, going to a medical doctor is an exercise in futility, and quite frankly, it's dangerous. Now, look, here's the basic cliff notes. MD-directed medical treatments for chronic diseases do not work. Well, that should be they do not cure. And they're the leading cause of bankruptcy. And the only reason that we continue to go back to this well is because of the monopoly which the pharmaceutical industry and the American Medical Association, Health Canada, and every other health organization around the world has put in place. For goodness sakes, MD-directed medical treatments for chronic disease are the wrong dog for the hunt. Now, let me put this in perspective for you, all right? Because all this highfalutin philosophy, what the heck does that mean anyway? Well, it means quite a bit, and it's not that difficult to understand. So let me walk you through how the MDs look at illnesses. And on my website, glidden.healthcare, I have an extensive subscription service, an extensive library of pre-recorded videos, pre-recorded audio outtakes from my radio program and the podcasts that I do, which help to educate you about many different illnesses from the holistic perspective. But for educational purposes tonight, let's look at one of them, lupus, and quite frankly, autoimmune disease, right? Autoimmune diseases have become the new scapegoat for all illness. Well, we can't treat lupus, we can't treat rheumatoid arthritis, we can't cure these things because they're autoimmune and they're extremely complicated, blah, 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 blah. Let me walk you through how a medical doctor looks at this, right? From their point of view, it's genetics. It's biochemical. We don't really know what's causing it. Or it's a virus, right? So that's what it was. It's a virus. Oh, it's genes. You have a bad gene. Well, no, you don't. This, however, is their fallback position. And, because most of us are not any smarter than a fifth grader, when we hear the word genetic, we cower in intellectual inferiority. And anything else that the medical doctor says, we're just going to believe, even though in point of fact, it's just a lot of conjecture built on a gigantic mound of BS. Quite frankly, a better way to look at it is it's fuzzy logic. The reductionistic understanding of autoimmune disease is fuzzy logic. Here's how it goes. So if you have lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or some type of autoimmune disease, there is something called a rheumatoid factor in your blood. Rheumatoid factor, they can see it. Rheumatoid factor is an antibody found in the blood of 70 to 80% of rheumatoid arthritis sufferers. Higher levels of rheumatoid factor correlate with more severe symptoms and faster progression of the disease. However, some people with rheumatoid arthritis test negative for rheumatoid factor, and some people without rheumatoid factor are positive for rheumatoid arthritis. So it's not a 100% definitive test. You get it? Well, don't worry, there's another one. It's called the anti-CCP antibody. It's also associated with rheumatoid arthritis. If you test positive for this, there's a 90% chance you have rheumatoid arthritis. A positive test for anti-CCP also indicates that your problem is going to progress more quickly. On the other hand, many rheumatoid arthritis patients don't have it. They test negative for it. So this test is most often used in combination with other tests. Oh, there's another one, the anti-nuclear antibody. It measures your immune system chemicals that indicate what the MDs believe is an autoimmune disease. 30 to 40% of rheumatoid patients test positive for anti-nuclear antibodies. Get it? Okay, so does 2 plus 2 equal 5? No. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Let's look at this from their perspective. So, according to the research, here's what the MDs believe about autoimmune disease. People with autoimmune disease have antibodies that healthy people do not have. Antibodies in their blood that healthy people do not have, but some of them, only sometimes. Therefore, it is the antibody that causes the disease, even though it is not always present. Why? The body is a bag of chemicals waiting to break, so just trust me, I went to Harvard, is basically their intellectual, scientific, medical argument. And you know, once that horse is out of the barn, it's not going back in. Whenever 100 medical doctors all agree on something, it becomes true, even if it's not. Anybody here remember bloodletting? Wasn't bloodletting the treatment of choice of the sophisticated medical doctor? Isn't that how George Washington was killed? This is the problem with the self-policing, self-regulating monopoly. When they develop points of view on whatever, those points of view become rote, even if they're wrong. Now look, we need perspective on all of this stuff. We need the proper perspective. We need the proper perspective to understand illness. We need the proper perspective to understand the pathogenesis of disease. But remember, the medical doctors are trained in one particular type of philosophy, allopathic reductionism. And allopathic reductionism is inconsistent with the reality of the human experience because it argues against the existence of the soul. No soul in the human body, thus saith the MD. And because of this particular perspective that they bring to bear, all of their conclusions on the genesis of chronic disease, or most of their conclusions, are incorrect, but they don't know they're incorrect. I mean, for instance, if your great-granddaddy had a sextant, he used to be a sailor, and he used a sextant to chart the position of the sun in the sky, and you got that sextant, you knew how to work it, you could go outside every day at noontime and you could look at the position of the sun in the sky. You could chart the position of the sun in the sky 10 times a day for an entire year. You'd have mountains of data that you could then use to accurately predict where the sun was going to be in the sky at any moment in time at your location on planet Earth, and you would be 100% correct. And you'd have mountains of data to support your position. And then you could also make the conclusion that, ladies and gentlemen, it's the sun that goes around the Earth. I mean, look, you don't even need to take measurements to see that. It's the sun that rises and the sun sets. The sun's moving around the Earth. The Earth is standing still. Well, you'd be wrong, even though you had mountains of data to support that notion. You'd be wrong because you were blind to two simple data points. 3, the mass of the sun, the mass of the Earth, and angular momentum. If you had no idea of these 3 things, you would be drawn to the wrong conclusions, even though you would have mountains of data to support your position. That is exactly what the medical doctors do because of their grounding in reductionism. Interestingly enough, the only people in the world that practice reductionism are the MDs, right? The body's a machine waiting to break. There is no soul. The body can't heal itself. Illness must be managed with drugs. Ay, 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 ay. Holistic physicians, on the other hand, that's everybody else except the medical doctor. Everybody else except the medical doctor. The body's a complex system. There is a soul. The body has intelligence. It knows how to fix itself. Bada bing, bada boom. Look, if you had a particular type of color blindness, you would not be able to see the number 5 in that design. You would be blind, but you wouldn't know that you're blind. And this is what it is with the MDs. They're like colorblind artists who don't know that they're colorblind. This is why their therapeutics consistently fail. But nobody's talking about this. Not like me. So what do the MDs do when they see somebody with a quote-unquote autoimmune disease? Well, suppress the immune system, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we have to do. We use Imuran. We use Sandimmune, cyclosporin, monoclonal antibodies, right? Just ask Phil Nicholson. He loves this stuff. Corticosteroids also, such as prednisone, deltazone, orezone. Let's not worry that it's not curing the disease. Let's not worry about the side effects. Why aren't we going to worry about these? Well, because it's a gigantic industry, about $100 billion a year worldwide. The medical profession makes treating people with autoimmune disease, not curing it, not curing it, not curing it, and in the meanwhile generating side effects. And I'm the quack. Well, Dr. Glidden, this might all be well and good, but what's your perspective? What's the holistic perspective on autoimmunity? Well, it's quite easy, quite frankly. There are a handful of my colleagues that believe autoimmunity goes like this. Kind of like what happens when animals get hit by automobiles. Right? If you're in Australia and there's a Joey and he's running across the road and gets hit by a traveler, pretty soon he's going to be a decayed mass on the side of the road, right? Well, what happens? What happened to the dead animal's body? Got eaten up by bugs, right? Turn over any dead animal on the side of the road and you're going to see worms eating him from the inside out. This is nature's way of clearing up the dead matter from the environment, and exactly the same thing happens inside the human body, but because the medical doctors think that they're smarter than God, they don't even believe in God, they don't look at these connections. So here's a holistic understanding of autoimmunity that I'm putting forth right now. Chronic inflammation and lack of nutrition, lack of nutrients, lack of vitamins and minerals leads to consistent destruction of healthy tissue on a microscopic level. The body doesn't like dead tissue, so when there's enough dead tissue that's built up, the body calls in the cleanup crew, which is the immune system. It generates antibodies to clean up the mess, and the antibody is the result of the disease, not the cause of the disease. That's why it's not in everybody all the time, because different levels of inflammation, different levels of immune response, right? The antibody is the result of the disease, not the cause of the disease. This is the proper perspective to understand the genesis of this illness, and it will never be brought to bear by the MD because they are grounded in reductionism. And like colorblind artists who do not know that they are colorblind, they are continually going to draw bad pictures. All of this, right, begs the question, well, what causes inflammation and malnutrition? Little lapdogs is what cause malnutrition and inflammation, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it's not little lapdogs. It's these guys. All right, no, it's not those guys. That's not a very good way to portray the MDs, Dr. Glidden. I don't really care. They're the leading cause of death. Inflammation and malnutrition are caused by consistent consumption of food, which is inappropriate for the human body, and a medical monopoly, which pays no attention to nutrition. Your medical doctor may be the nicest person in the world, but they have no training, no education, no respect, no appreciation for medical nutrition. And because they exist in the monopoly, you do not know what I know. You do not know what my colleagues know. And you let the people who make the food tell you what food to eat. I don't think that's a good idea. If you bought a brand new Mercedes, win the lottery, buy a Mercedes, have a very successful business, buy a Mercedes. It's an unleaded engine, 20-gallon tank, and every time you fill it up, you put 10 gallons of unleaded and 10 gallons of diesel. It's only a matter of time until the engine craps out, and there's nothing wrong with the engine. It's the fuel, baby. You put the wrong fuel in the engine, sooner or later the engine is going to explode. Human body is no different. And because your medical doctor owns the show of medicine, because your medical doctor has no training, no experience, no respect, and no appreciation for medical nutrition, you are in the dark. You're consistently eating food all of the time, which is hurting the body, and your body has run out of the essential nutrients that it needs to fix itself. Which brings us to part 2 of this presentation, the good news, what to do to get on the other side of a chronic health condition. My mentor and colleague, Dr. Joel Wallach, the second oldest naturopathic doctor in the world, arguably the most researched and published naturopathic doctor in the world, the founder of the Youngevity Essential Life Sciences Network Marketing Company, is, in this doctor's estimation, the king of the hill when it comes to understanding how the body works and what to do to help the body recover its health. I could give an hour-long presentation about Dr. Wallach's resume. Among other things, he's taken the Food and Drug Administration to court a number of times to secure something called a qualified health claim. Generally speaking, the only thing that can cure disease in the United States, according to the Food and Drug Administration, is a drug. Did you know that? The only thing that can cure disease is a drug. Thus spake the FDA. And in order to get a drug approved, it's tens of millions of dollars, $40 to $60 million you have to spend to get a drug approved. This pushes vitamin companies and herbal companies out of the game. Nobody but Big Pharma has that type of money. But there is a little loophole in that egregious law which allows doctors, anybody quite frankly, who has the chutzpah, to approach the Food and Drug Administration with mountains of research. And if all of the research points to a certain medical conclusion, and if the stars align, the Food and Drug Administration will grant something called a qualified health claim. Youngevity has been involved in a number of qualified health claims. Because of Youngevity's efforts, we can say that the trace mineral selenium is cancer preventive. We can say that omega-3 essential fatty acids reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. And we can say that the antioxidants in vitamin C and vitamin E are cancer preventive. And we can do all of these things because of the proactivity of Youngevity, led, of course, by Dr. Wallach. Now, do you know any other nutritional supplement companies in the world that are doing things like this? I don't. And I've been in this industry for over a quarter of a century. But where the rubber hits the road, and why Dr. Wallach's therapeutics are so effective, and why I'm such a cheerleader for the Youngevity brand of nutritional supplements, is because of Dr. Wallach's research. There was an environmental disaster years ago in Japan. It was called the Minamata disaster. Tons of gallons or lots of mercury, liquid mercury, was dumped into Minamata River. It flowed into Minamata Bay, poisoned everybody in Minamata. Lots of people died. Everybody got sick. And 9 months later, all the children born in Minamata were unbelievably disfigured with birth defects, all because of mercury toxicity. This was kind of a wake-up call to the scientific community, and scientists discovered, were of the opinion that, son of a gun, if mercury toxicity can do this, what about other things in the environment that we're dumping into the environment, which we don't even know about? We need to figure out the extent of environmental toxicity on the net negative health of humans, and they put Dr. Wallach in charge of this research. It took 12 years. From 1971 to 1983, cost $25 million. In modern day money, that's, I don't know, a lot of dollars. Dr. Wallach did 26,000 autopsies, more or less, 10 million blood chemistries and histopathologies, more or less. And his publication, which was the result of this, The Diseases of Exotic Animals, is in the Smithsonian institution. It's a national treasure, not bad for a naturopathic doctor. The cliff notes here, $25 million of research, 26,000 autopsies, and 10 million blood chemistries later, we can say that in order for the human body to be healthy, it needs 90 essential nutrients every day. Here's the breakdown. 60 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 amino acids, and 2 essential fatty acids for a grand total of 90 essential nutrients. Hence, the Youngevity Company's mantra, 90 for life. This is what we talk about, or what we're referring to when we are referring to the 90 for life. It is the 90 essential nutrients that the human body needs. And keep in mind, a nutrient is called essential if the body needs it, but it cannot make it. Your body needs 90 essential nutrients every day just to function optimally. Now, nutrient deficiency diseases are rampant, but because the medical doctors have no training in medical nutrition, have no clinical experience, and quite frankly no respect for it because they are colorblind to it, they have no idea of the relationship between nutrients and diseases, and we do. Here's the short list. High blood pressure is directly related to not enough calcium, not enough magnesium. Ringing in the ears, not enough calcium, not enough sulfur-bearing molecules. Vertigo, not enough calcium. Type 2 diabetes, multiple mineral deficiencies, especially vanadium and chromium. Congestive heart failure, not enough thiamine or vitamin B like baby 1. Asthma, not enough omega-3 essential fatty acids. Obesity, multiple nutrient deficiencies. This is the secret to weight gain that not even Oprah knows, ladies and gentlemen. If you're struggling with obesity, you don't have a bad gene, you have a bad doctor. If you're struggling with obesity, you don't have, you're not lazy, you're not depressed, you're not irresponsible. You're nutritionally deficient. Your body is starving for nutrients. Because your body is starving for nutrients, it forces you to eat. But the food that you're eating doesn't have the nutrients you need. And so you'll go to Olive Garden, you'll eat like a horse, consume 3,000 calories in 45 minutes, and 2 hours later, you're hungry again. The medical doctor's treatment for this, let's just cut out your stomach. Oh, that's too extreme? You don't want to do the gastric bypass? Okay, then let's just wrap a belt around your stomach and squeeze it tight. Let's do the lap band surgery. That's a good idea. Well, quite frankly, it's barbaric. But remember, when you're the king, anything goes. For goodness sakes, ladies and gentlemen, in the course of 70 years, we go from that to that. And it's not because we have a bad gene. It's because we are consistently eating food all of the time, which is bad for us. And our bodies are completely undernutrified all of the time. But, oh, Dr. Glidden, my medical doctor told me all I needed to do was eat from the 4 food groups, and I'd get everything that I needed all the time. Well, if you believe that, you also probably believe in the Easter Bunny. They are both myths. It is impossible to get all 90 essential nutrients from food. Read impossible. It is not challenging. It is not difficult. It's impossible to get all 90 nutrients from food. You can't do it. You cannot do it, and here's why. You remember the breakdown, 90 essential nutrients. Well, the lion's share are the minerals. 60 of 90, that's 2/3, 66% of your nutrient needs are minerals. Things like calcium, selenium, zinc, and sulfur, right? And minerals you've never even heard of, like europium. For goodness sakes. Only problem with minerals is the only person that can make a mineral is God. Animals can't make minerals. Plants can't make minerals. The only way that minerals get into the human body is if they're in the soil that the plants that we eat are grown in, or the plants that the animals eat that we then eat are grown in. If the minerals are not evenly distributed in the soil, if the minerals are not in the soil, they're not in the food. If they're not in the food, they're not in us. Period. Here's a map in the United States of the trace mineral selenium, which is essential for cancer prevention. In this map, if it's pink or reddish, there's a lot of selenium. Orange and yellow, moderate amounts of selenium. Blue and gray, not so much. And white, there isn't any. Isn't any. None. Nada. Niet. So, if you are lucky enough to eat organically grown tomatoes harvested by Trappist monks under a full moon and they're grown here, you got lucky. You hit the jackpot. There's lots of selenium. But if they're grown here, if they're grown here, if they're grown here, or if they're grown here, or if they're grown here, there is no selenium in the food. And by the way, this is one map of one mineral. Remember, there are 59 other minerals that we need for a total of 60. No place on planet Earth that we've discovered so far has all 60 minerals in the soil. Oh, but Dr. Glidden, I can get all my selenium from Brazil nuts. Isn't that what Dr. Oz told me? Well, maybe he did, but remember, he's a colorblind artist who doesn't know that he's colorblind. In point of fact, for whatever reason, the Brazil nut tree does concentrate selenium extremely well, but the selenium has to be in the soil in the first place. If it's not in the soil, it's not in the tree. If it's not in the tree, it's not in the nut. If it's not in the nut, it's not in you. Which leads to the unbelievable observation that everybody is nutritionally deficient. Everybody. Everybody. If this tank represents your nutrient needs, it needs to be topped off every day with the 90 essential nutrients. Every day. Every day. But because of the minerals situation and because of other situations, the way that the food is grown and the way that it's cooked, most people's tank is about half full. You're lucky if your nutritional tank is half full. But then what happens? Well, we experience the stress of life. Viral stress, bacterial stress, fungal stress, emotional stress, financial stress, weather, aging. Life is a great big bowl of stress. Stress whittles away at our reserves and then something breaks. Then we go to a medical doctor who doesn't know any of this and they give us a drug not to cure it but to manage it. The drug actually makes us more nutritionally deficient, so after a while the drug stops working. We need another drug and then another drug and then we die. We're lucky if we don't go bankrupt in the process, and then our relatives are so grief-stricken that they organize a 5K run on our behalf and give money to the medical doctors under whose care we got sick in the first place. For goodness sakes. And you know, if you look back at time, chronic diseases really started to accelerate here in the 20th century, and here's the reason that only a few of us understand. It all happened on September 4th, 1882, in Pearl Street, New York, overlooking the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, and it's due to this man, Thomas Alva Edison. He pulled the switch on the first electric generator, bringing electrical energy to a district of New York City. This was the first time that electrical energy was available to the masses. This was the birth of the electric revolution. And what on earth does this have to do with chronic disease? Oh, is it electromagnetic radiation from the overhead wires? No. It's something much more down to earth. Before, electricity was in everybody's house. Everybody heated and cooked with wood. And what was the result of heating and cooking with wood? Wood ash. Wood ash was an industry. The collection and the dissemination of wood ash was a cottage industry. It was a big deal. And the white ash from the middle of the fire was called potash. That's where it was the hottest. The carbon in the ash would burn off, and what's left in wood ash? Minerals. Wood ash is 99.99% minerals. The minerals that the plant, the tree, the bush, whatever it was, sucked out of the ground that it was growing in. The fire burns away the sugars and the cellulose and the carbon and everything else, but it can't burn away a mineral. So the wood ash was almost 100% minerals. People would take the white ash from the middle of the fire and put it in their food. Culinary ash. Culinary ash was a big deal in the 1800s. But after the electrical revolution, nobody was heating or cooking with wood anymore. So no more wood ash. No more wood ash, no more minerals. Remember, minerals are a big deal. 66% of your nutrient needs. So now there's less minerals in your body. And this is one of the leading causes of chronic disease. It's not genetic, it's nutritional. If you're struggling with a chronic illness, your body is nutritionally deficient, guaranteed. And in order for you to get on the other side of that, you need 90 essential nutrients, right? You need them all. You need the 90. You need to fill your tank up, period. For goodness sakes. Coretta Scott King listened to our advice. She listened to Dr. Wallach. She was able to march in the Million Man March after recovering from a bad arthritic condition. She gave her body the nutrients it needed, and her body fixed itself to the ability that it was able to. It wasn't genetic. Evander Holyfield had a heart condition. He fixed it with medical nutrition. Thank you, Dr. Wallach. Nelson Mandela lived as long as he did, beat the curve, died in his 90s, right? Most people die in their early 80s here in the United States. I have no idea what the average life expectancy in South Africa is. He made it as long as he did because he was taking Youngevity's nutritional supplements while he was in jail in South Africa, for goodness sakes. Creflo Dollar, a very famous evangelist in the South, his daughter was dying from asthma, which was unresponsive to conventional treatment, and she recovered completely with medical nutrition. Thank you, Dr. Wallach. Theo Ratliff, second oldest player in the NBA, was told by the best orthopedic surgeons in professional basketball that he couldn't play because his bones and joints were too far gone. He needed multiple surgeries and he had to retire. Theo talked to Dr. Wallach, followed Dr. Wallach's advice, and 9 months after the orthopedic doctors told him he was done, he came back and led the league in rebounds, not only for that year, but for 3 years in a row. Added tens of millions of dollars to his NBA contracts because he didn't retire because of medical nutrition. For goodness sakes, ladies and gentlemen, this is the tip of the iceberg. Now, in a public forum like this, because of the Food and Drug Administration rules and regulations, because of the ridiculous legality that the only thing that can treat a drug is that can treat a disease is a drug, in a public forum like this, we have to draw the line. I can't tell you what nutritional supplements to take in order to treat a disease because that's illegal. Now, as a private patient of mine, I could tell you to do that. You can go to a naturopathic doctor, you can go to a chiropractor, an Ayurvedic practitioner, and they can tell you exactly what to do in the context of a doctor-patient relationship in a state or a province in which they're licensed and regulated. But in a general assembly like this, there's a lot of gray area. And so, I'm here to tell you that if you want more information specifically about what to do for disease states with something other than drugs and surgery, if you'd like a different perspective, then go to my website, glidden.healthcare, become a subscriber to my online health recovery program. I have a self-help health recovery program online. There are 4 different levels of membership. Join, educate yourself, and figure out what you can do right now to get your body into the game of healing with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. And my advice to you, find somebody who is a member of Youngevity. Find a Youngevity distributor. Perhaps it's the person who told you to watch this little presentation of mine. Find a Youngevity distributor and ask them what you can do, how you can get the 90 essential nutrients into your body in order to support and promote your body's ability to fix itself. And this is what we educate people in, right? You know, it's against the law to treat disease without using drugs. So people in Youngevity are not up to that. but people in Youngevity are up to helping you to know what to do to support and promote your body's ability to have healthy bones, healthy heart, healthy joints, healthy kidneys, healthy stomachs, healthy whatever. We do this with science-based, clinically verified nutrition. Ladies and gentlemen, your body's ability to fix itself is greater than anybody has led you to believe, and you must nutrify. You must. It's mandatory. You have to drink water every day. You have to put clothes on when you go outside to protect yourself against the elements. You have to eat calories for energy. There's one more thing you have to do, but nobody told you about it. You need to nutrify. You need to take the 90 essential nutrients every day. And when you start to do that, your body, for the first time in your life, will have everything that it's needed to fix itself, for goodness sakes. And that's a game changer. You can't get into the game of healing unless you nutrify. In this physician's opinion, you can't do it. You have to give your body the raw materials it needs to optimize its structure and function. And in 28 years of clinical experience, I'm here to tell you that nobody does that better over the counter than Youngevity. Get in touch with your Youngevity representative and find out how you can take advantage of this remarkable health opportunity. Youngevity, 90 for life. I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. Thank you for tuning in and turning on. I'll look forward to seeing you at some point in the future. Remember, knowledge is power here, and we are going a long way, out of our way, to tell as many people as we can our message of health recovery through science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. Get in touch with your Youngevity representative today and find out how you can do exactly that. Become a subscriber at my website and educate yourself a little bit more, because there's a lot more to learn here. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Until we meet in some time in the future, and even after that, I am your steadfast advocate for health, Dr. Peter Glidden. Live long and prosper. I'll see you around campus.